I always thought I knew the people closest to me. My family, my friends, and especially her. She was the one person I trusted without question. She always said she was just my sister, and I believed her. Not by blood, of course. But we grew up together, lived under the same roof after my mom took her in when her parents passed. We were like family, shared meals, shared memories, and shared a bond that felt unshakable. But that one night changed everything. Her name is Rachel. Beautiful, smart, and the kind of girl who could walk into a room and make heads turn without even trying. She always called me her annoying big brother, and I played along, teased her like any sibling would. That's all we were. That's all I thought we'd ever be. But people hide things. Feelings, thoughts, secrets. And sometimes those secrets don't stay buried forever. It all started when my girlfriend, Mia, began acting cold. Calls got shorter. Texts fewer. I thought maybe I was imagining things, overthinking like I always do. But something in my gut kept telling me there was more to the story. So I started paying attention, really paying attention. That's when I noticed how often Rachel and Mia had private conversations. How they suddenly got quiet when I entered the room. I brushed it off at first. I didn't want to be that guy. The paranoid boyfriend. The jealous brother. But you can only ignore the signs for so long before they start screaming at you. Then came the night of my birthday. A small gathering at home, just a few friends, some drinks, and good vibes. Rachel went all out decorating the house. Mia brought my favorite cake. Everything looked perfect. But beneath the surface, something felt off. I caught Rachel watching me more than once, eyes lingering a little too long. And when I looked back at her, she didn't look away. Not like she used to. Later that night, after the guests left and the house fell quiet, I couldn't sleep. I went downstairs to get some water, and that's when I saw her, Rachel, standing in the kitchen, lost in thought, looking through old photos on her phone. She didn't notice me at first. But when she did, she smiled softly, like she had something to say but wasn't sure how. That smile, though, it wasn't the kind you give a brother. It was something else. Something confusing. Something dangerous. We ended up sitting on the couch, talking like we used to. But the air between us felt heavy. She leaned in a little too close. Her hand touched mine and stayed there. And then, in a voice so quiet I almost didn't hear it, she said, "There's something I've been keeping from you." My heart started racing. I didn't know what to expect. But what she told me next made everything spiral. That was the moment I realized everything I thought I knew about Rachel, about Mia, about loyalty, was about to fall apart. I stared at Rachel, my mind racing with questions I didn't even know how to ask. Her eyes were filled with something, fear, maybe guilt, maybe both. The silence between us grew thick, like it was holding all the words neither of us wanted to say. "I've been keeping something from you," she repeated, and this time her voice cracked just a little. My heart dropped. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew it wasn't something small. She looked away, her fingers nervously picking at the hem of her sweater. "I never wanted to hurt you," she whispered. But I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal anymore. I asked her what she meant, trying to stay calm, but inside, I was falling apart. Rachel had always been the one constant in my life, someone I leaned on, someone I trusted. And now, she was looking at me like she had broken something we could never fix. She didn't give me the full truth right away. Instead, she started talking about how things had changed after Mia came into the picture. She said there were moments, quiet ones, barely noticeable, that started to shift everything. She and Mia would talk when I wasn't around. At first, it was innocent. Then it wasn't. That's all she said. And then she stopped, like she was scared to go any further. I pressed her for more, but she just shook her head. "You don't understand," she said. "It's not as simple as you think. That's when it hit me, this wasn't just about some awkward tension or a misunderstanding. Something real had happened. Something that crossed a line. And the worst part? I still didn't know the full truth. The days that followed were filled with strange moments. Mia became more distant, Rachel more quiet. I started noticing little things, glances exchanged between them, late-night texts Mia claimed were just work stuff, and the way Rachel would always leave the room whenever I asked too many questions. I tried not to lose my mind. But when your gut tells you something's wrong, it usually is. The walls were closing in, and the people I trusted most were starting to look like strangers. I didn't know who to confront first. I didn't even know what to believe. But one thing was clear, whatever Rachel had started to confess that night was just the beginning. And the truth, no matter how painful, was waiting to tear everything apart. The days turned into a blur of second-guessing and silent stares. I found myself caught between two women I loved in completely different ways, Rachel, the girl who felt like family, and Mia, the woman I planned to build a future with. But the lines between them were starting to blur, and I was left trying to make sense of a story that wasn't adding up. Mia acted like everything was fine. She still kissed me goodbye, still smiled when I walked into the room, but I noticed how forced it felt now. The warmth in her voice was fading. Her phone never left her hand, and she always seemed one step away from checking out. I wanted to believe she was just stressed or tired, but deep down, I knew better. And every time I caught her and Rachel in the same room, something tightened in my chest. They hardly spoke around me now, but there was a weird kind of tension between them, like something unspoken had already been said. Then there was Rachel. She kept avoiding eye contact, always finding reasons to stay in her room or leave the house when Mia was around. I tried asking her again about what she started to tell me that night, but she just shook her head and said, "You're not ready to hear it." That one sentence haunted me. What did that even mean? What was I not ready for? To make things worse, my best friend Leo started picking up on things too. One night over drinks, he looked at me and said, "Man, I don't want to stir the pot, but are you sure everything's okay with Mia? And Rachel? Something feels off." I didn't have an answer, just a knot in my stomach that had been growing for weeks. Even people outside the house were starting to notice. One evening, I came home early from work and heard hushed voices in Rachel's room. The door was cracked open just enough. I stood there frozen. It was Mia's voice, soft, urgent, emotional. I couldn't hear the words clearly, but I caught one sentence that made my blood run cold, "He can never know." I stepped back, careful not to make a sound. My mind spiraled. What were they hiding from me? And how long had this been going on behind my back? Whatever the truth was, it wasn't small. And I had a feeling once it came out, nothing in my life would be the same again. After that night, I couldn't sleep. He can never know. Those 4 words echoed in my head like a broken record. I kept playing them over and over, trying to fill in the blanks, trying to figure out what exactly they were hiding from me. But no matter how hard I tried, nothing made sense. Every possible explanation seemed worse than the last. I started pulling away from both of them, pretending things were normal while quietly observing everything. I stopped asking questions and just watched. And what I saw only made things worse. Late-night whispers, quick glances, locked phones. It was like I was living with strangers wearing masks of the people I once trusted. Mia started noticing the change in me. One night, she asked if I was okay. I told her I was just tired, but she didn't buy it. She leaned in, touched my arm, and said, "If there's something bothering you, talk to me." I looked at her and wanted to scream, wanted to tell her I knew something was going on, that I wasn't blind. But I stayed quiet. I needed more than suspicions. I needed the truth. The turning point came a few days later when Rachel left her journal out on the kitchen counter. It was old, worn, like something she'd carried for years. Normally, I wouldn't touch something so personal, but after everything. I couldn't help myself. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. Most of it was harmless, random thoughts, poems, sketches. But then, buried near the back, I found it. A short entry. Just a few lines. But it hit like a punch to the gut. I told myself it was wrong. I told her it would hurt him. But I couldn't stop. We crossed a line I can't undo. I closed the journal and sat there in silence, staring at nothing. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. I didn't know how far things had gone, or for how long, but now I had proof, confirmation that something real, something serious, had happened behind my back. The betrayal wasn't just a feeling anymore. It was written in her own words. That night, I made a decision. I needed to hear it from them. I needed answers, face to face. So I waited until they were both home. And when the moment came, I stood in the living room, heart pounding, and called out both their names. They appeared slowly, like they already knew what was coming. I looked them dead in the eyes and said, "We're not leaving this room until I know the truth." Rachel and Mia stood across from me, both frozen. For a long moment, no one said a word. The air felt heavy, almost electric. I could see it in their eyes, guilt, fear, something else I couldn't name. I had never felt so out of place in my own home. Rachel looked down, her fingers clenched around the edge of her shirt. Mia opened her mouth like she was going to say something, but no words came out. The silence was unbearable. "I found your journal," I said, looking straight at Rachel. Her eyes snapped up, wide with shock. "You said you crossed a line. You said you couldn't undo it. I want to know exactly what that means. Right now." She looked at Mia, who suddenly took a step back, shaking her head. "You weren't supposed to see that," Rachel whispered, her voice cracking. "I never wanted you to find out like this." "I didn't want to find out at all," I snapped. "But here we are." Mia finally spoke. "It's not what you think," she said quickly. "It's complicated." I laughed bitterly. "No. What's complicated is being lied to in my own house by the two people I trusted the most. So if either of you wants to explain, now's the time." Rachel opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Mia blurted out something I never expected. "It started before we got together. Before you and I became serious." I stared at her. "What are you talking about?" Mia looked down, almost like she was ashamed. "Rachel and I, we had a thing. A long time ago. It didn't mean to come back, but it did." My whole body tensed. "A thing? That's what she called it?" I turned to Rachel, who looked like she might break. "You two were involved? And you never told me?" "It was over," Rachel said quickly. "We thought it was. And then when you started dating her. I tried to stay away, I swear. But it wasn't just about the past anymore. Something didn't add up." "Then what's going on now?" I asked. "Because from what I saw, it's not over. And from what I read, you still have feelings." They both went silent again. And then, the second twist dropped. Rachel stepped forward, tears in her eyes. "It's not just about feelings," she said quietly. "Mia's pregnant." Time stopped. My brain couldn't even process it. I looked at Mia, waiting for her to deny it. But she didn't. Instead, she looked away. "And it's not mine, is it?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Mia said nothing. That silence was louder than any confession. Everything I knew, every plan, every relationship, every promise, fell apart in that one moment. Now the betrayal wasn't just emotional. It was real, permanent, and it had consequences. I didn't know who I was more angry at, Mia for lying, Rachel for hiding it, or myself for not seeing the truth sooner. But one thing was clear, this story wasn't just about infidelity anymore. It was about betrayal on every level. And it wasn't over yet. My legs felt weak. I sat down, not because I wanted to, but because my body wouldn't hold me up anymore. My heart was racing, my head spinning, and the weight of what I'd just heard made it hard to even breathe. Mia, pregnant. And not with my child. That single truth shattered everything we had built. I looked at Rachel, who couldn't stop crying now. She kept mumbling, "I'm sorry," over and over, but the words didn't mean anything anymore. Mia stood in silence, her arms wrapped around herself, eyes glued to the floor like she was trying to disappear. I had demanded the truth, and now that I had it, I didn't even know what to do with it. "I need to know," I said slowly, steadying my voice. "How long has this been going on?" Rachel hesitated, then answered, "Since last winter. The night we went to that cabin, you remember? You couldn't make it because of work." I did remember. I had trusted them to go together because, in my mind, they were like sisters. I never imagined that trip would be the beginning of everything falling apart. The lies, the late nights, the distant looks, it all traced back to that weekend. Mia finally looked up, her eyes red. "It wasn't planned. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I loved you. I still do in some way, but things got complicated." "You don't sleep with someone else because things are complicated," I snapped. "You talk. You fix it. Or you walk away." The tension broke for a moment when Rachel walked toward me, her voice trembling. "I need you to know. I never wanted to hurt you. I didn't even think I was capable of feeling this way. But I did. And then it was too late." I stood up, chest tight. "So what now? You're having a baby. You two planning on raising it together?" The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. Rachel shook her head. "No. I'm not keeping it." The room went still. Mia turned to her, shocked. "What do you mean?" Rachel looked right at her. "I wasn't ready to tell you either. But I can't bring a child into this kind of mess. I made my choice." That changed everything. For a second, the rage inside me turned to sadness. None of us were okay. We were all just broken people making one wrong decision after another. I turned to leave. I didn't yell, I didn't slam doors, I just walked out. But just as I opened the front door, Rachel called after me. "There's one more thing," she said, voice low. "The journal you read? That wasn't written for you. It was written to Mia. I left it there on purpose." I turned, stunned. She looked me in the eyes and said, "I wanted you to find it. I needed this to end, because I couldn't." And just like that, I realized, the betrayal wasn't just about secrets. It was about choices. Calculated ones. And I had walked right into all of it. I stood there, halfway out the door, stunned by Rachel's final words. The journal wasn't a mistake, it was bait. Not because she wanted to come clean, but because she didn't have the strength to break the chain herself. And that hurt more than anything. All this time, I thought I'd stumbled onto the truth, but really, I'd been led to it. Set up. Rachel needed me to walk away so she wouldn't have to be the one to push me out. That realization made everything clearer. The lies, the silence, the guilt, they weren't just emotional slips. They were choices, stacked one on top of another, until the weight of them broke everything. And I had been living in that mess, thinking I could fix it. But there was nothing left to fix. I didn't say another word. I left. I walked out of the house that had once felt like home and didn't look back. For the next few days, I stayed at a friend's place. Leo didn't ask for details, just handed me a beer and gave me space. That kind of silence meant more than any words could. It gave me time to breathe, time to think, and more importantly, time to feel without drowning. Mia reached out a few times. Texts, a missed call, and finally, a long message about how sorry she was. She said she didn't expect forgiveness, and for once, I believed her. She knew she'd gone too far. Rachel never tried to contact me. I guess, in her own way, she thought she'd already said everything that needed to be said. Weeks passed. I moved into a new apartment on the other side of the city, far from the places and memories that haunted me. I focused on work, on healing, on figuring out who I was without all the noise. It wasn't easy. But slowly, the pain turned into understanding. And understanding turned into distance. Looking back now, I don't hate them. I don't hold on to the anger the way I did in the beginning. What they did was wrong, there's no justifying betrayal, but holding on to that hurt would have only kept me trapped. I learned that even people you trust the most can fail you. Even those who say they love you can make choices that cut deep. But I also learned something about myself. I walked through the fire, and I didn't let it burn me to the ground. I faced the truth, even when it shattered everything. And in doing so, I found something stronger than love or loyalty. I found self-respect. So if there's one thing I'd say to anyone listening to this true infidelity story, it's this: pay attention to the signs. Trust your instincts. And never lose yourself trying to hold on to people who are already letting go. She said she was just my sister. But that night told a different story. And the story ended with me choosing peace over pain, and walking away for good. 43.